I want you guys to pay attention to my class ability and the enemies in front of you. As what you're seeing, I am actually spamming my rally barricade and also igniting everything in front of me and also spawning in tons of sunspots, which will give me ability regen. And I am also playing this on the expert difficulty of the Nether. So the enemies are tankier and more stronger and they deal more damage to you. So as what you're seeing here, I am basically rolling them over. You're going to not to worry about ads grouping up on you. This build will clear everything in front of you just by activating one button, which is your rally barricade. People really did not like to use this exotic helmet because it was extremely useless. It did not provide anything whatsoever. But when episode Heresy came out, Bungie decided to buff this exotic helmet, and now it allows you to cause ignitions every single time you activate your rally barricade. So it's basically like miniature nukes. And we're also going to be producing tons of class ability energy. So every time you activate your rally barricade, you're more than likely are going to get it back. But if you don't, we are using weapons for this build that would help us generate even more class ability energy. And you are going to be stunning every single champion in this build if you have all of the weapons I am using for this build. But you can change any of the weapon archetypes that I am using for this build. All right, you guys are curious to know what exotic armor piece I'm talking about. It's called the Capri's Horn. Here's what they did before they buffed it. Basically, whenever you activate your rally barricade, it would summon one solar wave in front of you that would just hit the target and scorch them, dealing 9 scorch stacks. But in order for you to ignite them, you would have to use another weapon, such as, for example, Skyburner's Oath, that does apply scorch on hip fires to make them ignite. But now, instead of it summoning one solar wave of energy for that rally barricade, it's now going to summon 3. So one in the middle, one on the left, and one on the right every time you activate your rally barricade. And also 2, if that solar wave damages a target, it would summon a sunspot. And also, when an enemy goes into the sunspot, it would scorch them. So that scorching effect from that sunspot would guarantee that ignition from that enemy. So as long as you hit the target with your solar energy wave, they will ignite. We're also using a fragment for this build that you're going to need very badly if you want to cause guaranteed ignitions for this build. And you're also going to be getting class ability energy as well whenever you get kills with solar weapons. I believe it's 15% whenever you get a kill with your solar weapon. And in this build, we are using the Vex Mythoclast, an exotic linear fusion rifle that did get a damage buff. It did get a 30% damage increase for combatants. And we're also tying this to the seasonal artifacts, such as this one right here called Particle Reconstruction. Long story short, whenever you deal damage with either a fusion rifle or a linear fusion rifle, it would partially refill the magazine from reserves, and it would also give them bonus damage for a short duration. So it's kind of like weakening them in a way. So I think you get like a 20-something% damage boost between fusion and linear, so any of the two. Coming to think of it, I think this build is a free-to-play build because all you really need is the Vex Mythoclast and also the exotic helmet. And I think both of them are free to play, so as long as you have those two, you're good to go. But I chose to put the other weapons such as the Call and Watchful Eye just to tie it to the seasonal artifacts. That's the only reason why. All right, now that I am done discussing about the exotic helmet, let's head to the Sunbreaker Titan subclass. For the super, you can choose between any of the two, but for me, I feel comfortable using Hammer of Soul because 1, you can summon sunspots, and 2, you can ignite targets as well. Let's head to the abilities. For the class ability, your main priority is to go for Rally Barricade just because of the base cooldown. Because if you want to spam your barricade non-stop, this is the way to go because the base cooldown is 38 seconds compared to Towering Barricade, which is 1 minute and 10 seconds. And also, we are prioritizing in our stats with Resilience, which is tier 10. So instead of your Rally Barricade being 38 seconds, it is now going to be 22 seconds because we are on Titan, because Resilience ties to Titan. And whenever you're behind your Rally Barricade, it would also increase your reload speed, stability, and range, and it would also taunt enemies in front of you, which will become more aggro to you whenever you're behind the Rally Barricade. Next is the Solar Melee. You can choose any of the 2 melees you like, but I feel more comfortable using the Throwing Hammer because whenever you toss it and bonk that enemy and you pick up the hammer, it would actually cure you. But we're mainly not going to be using that. We're going to be using this aspect called Consecration. They did nerf it with the damage, but it still feels like the same. But it was like a 30% nerf, but again, it still feels the same. And if you want to know how to activate it, you would have to slide, activate your charge melee, and it would launch a solar wave of solar energy in front of you. And be sure that solar wave will hit that target, because whenever you're in the air, activate your charge melee again. You would slam your hammer to the ground and be sure to hit that scorched target. And once you do, that scorched target will ignite. And whenever you ignite an unstoppable champion, that champion will be stunned. Same goes for the solar grenade. You can choose any grenade you like. I like to survive a little bit longer in the battlefield, so I went for healing grenade. So whenever you toss your healing grenade, it will emit cure, but whenever you pick up the orb from the healing grenade, it will grant you restoration. The main aspect you're going to want to put for this build is Soul Invictus if you want to cause guaranteed ignitions for your rally barricade. And here's how you can be able to activate it. You can either one, get solar ability final blows, or Hammer of Soul impacts, so that's the super we are using. And lastly, whenever you defeat scorched targets, it will create a sunspot. And whenever you go into the sunspot, your abilities will regenerate faster. Your super drains more slowly whenever you're standing in a sunspot. And also, you're going to be getting restoration when you go into the sunspot. Only you in particular, not your teammates, just yourself. It doesn't really say anything about the rally barricade, but it really does scorch because of the exotic helmet we're using. So yeah. On the fragments, there are 4 in total, and here are the ones that you need to put for this build. The main one you're going to want to put is Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster whenever you scorch targets. So again, whenever you activate your rally barricade, it will hit the targets and the sunspot will spawn that will scorch the target. And I also do believe the wave of fire does that as well. So again, no matter what you're doing, as long as you hit the target, you would activate Ember of Singeing, and it would grant you plus 400% class ability regeneration for 3 seconds. The second fragment I went for is Ember of Searing, just to tie it to our melee, because it's kind of like a rally barricade / consecration build. So whenever we defeat scorched targets, it will grant us melee energy, and it would also create a fire sprite. And whenever you create the fire sprite and pick it up, it will grant you grenade energy. I believe it's 12.5% grenade energy, but don't quote me on that. It's roughly around that range. It actually is. I double checked, and it actually is 12.5% grenade energy. What's also cool is that you're going to be getting plus 10 recovery. And we are getting tons of guaranteed ignitions for this build, so might as well put Ember of Eruption. That increases your solar ignitions by 20%. And you're also going to be getting plus 10 strength. So the bigger ignitions, the bigger the boom, which makes everything around them from a further distance die. And if you want to guarantee your ignitions from your rally barricade, you're going to want to put Ember of Ashes. It basically makes your scorch stacks apply more to targets. So if you don't have Ember of Ashes and you were to activate your rally barricade, it would only apply 60 scorch stacks, and the sunspot will apply 5 scorch stacks per second. It's lower than that, but I'm just going to round it up per second. But if we have Ember of Ashes, it would now apply 90 scorch stacks. So all you would need is another 10 scorch stacks, and that's when the sunspot comes into play. So that would be 8 scorch stacks instead of 5 per second. So it's basically guaranteed ignition if you want to know the numbers. Okay, for the weapons I chose to put for this build, on the kinetic weapon, I put the Strand Sidearm. Yes, I did know it did get a massive nerf, but I really just put it for 1, the perk, and 2, because of the seasonal artifacts, which is Anti-Barrier Sidearm, just to stun anti-barrier champions. And also, forgot to mention, this one called Unraveling Orbs. Whenever we pick up an Orb of Power or a Tangle, it will grant your strand weapons unraveling rounds. This also does stun anti-barrier champions, but I just wanted to have a guaranteed way to stun anti-barrier champions, instead of me just looking for an orb, hoping for the best, but if I don't, I get railed by the anti-barrier. So that's basically, I just put anti-barrier sidearm. And it also comes with Horde Shuttle, and whenever you damage an unravel target, it would spawn in a threadling with a set chance. Okay, let's head to the perks that you're gonna need to put on the call. On the third column, go for Strategist. It's not necessary for this build, but it's kind of like an emergency way to give yourself even more class ability energy. So whenever you get a final blow, it will grant you class ability energy, and activating your class ability will give you stability. Again, not necessary. You can choose Let from Gold or something else. And for the fourth column, you can either go for Vorpal or One for All, but for me, I went for Vorpal because it did get a nerf with the damage, so I would rather have a passive amount of damage increase rather than shooting 3 enemies and getting that 35% damage increase. So that's just me. So I went for Vorpal. It increases the damage to bosses, vehicles, and guardians with their supers active. And it would also improve stability. What's really cool about the sidearm is that if you don't really like to put backup mag, you could also go for Synergy that will drop a Tangle with a set chance whenever you get a kill with the call. If you also want to activate Unraveling Orbs, just another way to produce unraveling rounds, your choice. But for me, I wanted to stick with backup mag because they did nerf the, of course, damage and the ammo economy for this. But we are using Special Finisher that will give us special ammo when whenever we finish a target if we have 3 stacks of armor charges, which will be consumed. But yeah, I just wanted to pick backup mag for more ammo in the mag. The origin trait doesn't matter for this build, but it kind of helps in a way if you care about your super. So whenever you get kills with this weapon, it will grant a small amount of super energy. And if we have multiple variants or pale heart weapons, it would increase the effect, but sadly we don't. Let's head to the exotic weapon. I chose to put Vex Mythoclast, basically just for the seasonal artifacts. But if you don't have the Vex Mythoclast, you can go for Sunshot or any other solar weapon you like to use. But again, I went for Vex Mythoclast just for particle reconstruction. That's the only reason why. And if you don't know what this does, basically it's kind of like a linear fusion slash fusion into one, but it's a primary weapon like an auto rifle. And if you were to get kills with this weapon up to 6 stacks, you can hold your reload button to overcharge it into a linear fusion rifle that deals massive damage to targets, and you would have 3 shots for that linear fusion rifle, and then it would change it to the regular fusion rifle Vex Mythoclast. The catalyst isn't necessary, but it does help with your damage, accuracy, and stability. So while at full auto mode, final blows with this weapon will grant bonus damage, accuracy, stability for a short duration. It's basically like Rampage, but better. For the power weapon, I chose to put the arc machine gun that came out in episode Heresy called the Watchful Eye. This is basically like Thunderlord, but legendary. I went with this machine gun just to tie it to the seasonal artifacts to grant us bolt charges. For example, this one right here called the Dielectric. Defeating arc debuff targets grants bolt charge, and the debuff for us is applying jolt because of the perk here called the jolting feedback. Dealing repeated damage with this weapon will inflict a jolt, while amplified jolt is applied faster. So if we were to get multi-kills with this weapon, because this is an arc weapon, we will be amplified. And also I did choose jolting feedback because I really like that perk, and 2, because currently right now, if you were to have overload machine gun, it would not work for any LMG. At the time that I'm recording, it is Tuesday right now, so they are going to change it on Thursday. And on the third column, I wanted to go for overflow, so whenever you pick up a special or heavy ammo brick, it would overflow your mag, just because you can just apply jolting feedback more often. But sadly, I got eddy current. It just increases your reload speed whenever you're amplified, and also handling. If you do care about your ability regen for this build, even though we're going to be getting our rally barricade very quickly, you can go for synergy. It would have a chance to spawn in an ionic trace that would give you grenade, melee, and class ability energy. Or you can go for backup mag just to proc jolting feedback more often, because the more of the mag you have, the higher of a chance you activate jolt on a target. The origin trait for this weapon is called Willing Vessel. Whenever you deal damage or defeating targets with this weapon, it would gradually increase your stability, handling, reload, and charge rate. This effect gradually decreases over time, but is gained more quickly while near allies. The origin trait is pretty useless for this build, but you can't take it off. We gotta use it. If you did notice something about the seasonal artifacts, I did change one thing, and it was from this. I was actually using a trace rifle from the new dungeon, but it was pretty schmeat. So I decided to pick this one, which is overclock, just to increase my reload speed and handling for my arc weapon, which is the LMG. And also I went with defibrillating blast. Whenever we stun a champion, it would give us the maximum of bolt charges, which will trigger an arc bolt that it would heal you and also jolt combatants. So in this build, we are going to be stunning every single champion, because this is anti, this is unstop, and this is overload. So I did mention for your stats to go for resilience to reduce your class ability cooldown and also give you a 30% damage reduction in PvE. And for your second priority, it would be either discipline or recovery, because for me, I am using a healing grenade. So if I want to prioritize in my grenade, which is the healing grenade, I would like to decrease my grenade cooldown. Or even though we are spawning sunspots that will give us restoration and all, you could go for recovery. You guys pick whatever stats you like. The only thing I'm going to talk about the armor mods is the helmet, just because of this one right here. I am using Strand Siphon for my sidearm, but if you don't really have the call or you don't really like to use any strand, you could also choose Arc Siphon for your LMG. So you can just choose between the two. But for me, I was currently using Strand Siphon. So if you guys would like to copy all of the armor mods, it would be right here. And yeah, change them as you please, as your play style, how you feel about the build. So yeah, change it as you please and how you feel. Why am I saying that a lot? I should shut up. So here's the gameplay loop for this build. It's pretty simple. All you would have to do is activate your rally barricade to summon the solar waves of energy to hit targets, to summon the sunspots, and then they will cause the ignition and they go boom. Also, run run into the sunspot to give yourself ability regen and also restoration. And lastly, if you don't have your rally barricade, you can use your Vex mythic class to give you even more class ability energy. Rinse and repeat. I hope you guys did enjoy this build video. If you'd like to see more builds in the near future, I would greatly appreciate it if you hit that like and sub button. And thank you so much for 7,000 subscribers. I would greatly appreciate it. It means so much to me. Like, genuinely, it actually means the world to me. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys enjoyed all these builds in episode Heresy, and I can't wait to make more for you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care and peace.